Your Excellency, greetings from Moscow.
Greetings from New York. Very good to see you all.
Thank you so much for your participation and for Mr. Cheremin, Minister of Moscow Government. So you will be our high-level guests, and we hope to understand how the projects of young people can be relevant. Dear friends, let us start this third edition of Friends for Leadership online meetup. And our today's topic is devoted to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, which last happened in 2019. And the next one will be already next year. But we decided, why not, if our community, Friends for Leadership, started their work exactly from this event, which is, by the way, one of the largest economic events in the world for all stakeholder groups, we decided to have SPIEF time online sessions. And we will have today with us our honorable guests, His Excellency Undersecretary General and Special Advisor for the UN75 preparations, Fabrizio Hochschild, also working on digital cooperation, and as you know, last week's coordination of Secretary General's roadmap was on behalf of His Excellency Hochschild. And Mr. Cheremin, Sergei Cheremin, is the Minister of the Moscow government, and he is also the head of External Economic and International Relations of the Moscow government. We are very honored today that we have an address by the Secretary General to our event, where he wished us all the best and success for this event. So we hope that it will be interesting for our speakers, for our distinguished audience and guests. So please, shall we start? As our dear Undersecretary General Fabrizio Hochschild is coordinating the UN75 agenda on behalf of the United Nations in this very important year and very interesting, difficult and important period of time during this pandemic, we would like to hear your thoughts, Your Excellency, about how the projects of young people can be incorporated in the UN efforts to bring development, to leave no one behind, to shape our future for the best, to ensure solidarity in these difficult times and beyond. So we would like you to please briefly represent main milestones of UN75, as our audience is already prepared and we disseminated the link for the survey, UN75 1-minute survey. If you still didn't do it, please find the link in the description of the video. And Your Excellency, the floor is yours. We are waiting for your comments.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Roman, and greetings to all of you who are participating from New York. It's very good to be with you, and particular greetings to Minister Cheremin. It's an honor to share the floor with you. No, international cooperation, quite frankly, even before COVID struck, was felt to be in crisis, with a growing number of challenges in an ever more interconnected, ever more interdependent world that could only be solved through international cooperation, and at the same time, for a number of reasons, a retreat from the methodology of international cooperation. And we see that in the lack of progress last year in the Madrid Climate Summit. We see it in the difficulties there are today in the Security Council to come to agreements around backing the Secretary General's appeal for a global ceasefire linked to COVID, agreements that have been for far too long on a common approach towards major conflicts like those in Syria that are causing untold suffering. So against that backdrop of magnified global challenges, but reduction in international cooperation, the Secretary General chose this peculiar methodology of going back to we the peoples to hear their voices and to try and get new inspiration, a new set of priorities for international cooperation. And we're deeply grateful to you, Roman, and to all your networks and all your colleagues for helping us progress in gathering more voices. And we've made very good progress, not least thanks to your efforts. Now, in parallel to that effort, and I'll speak more of it in a minute, there's also what member states are doing. And member states are negotiating a political declaration for UN75. This will be a declaration of heads of state that is to come out, be adopted on the 21st of September this year, when heads of state will gather, probably more digitally than in the analog world, to mark the 75th anniversary. And I'll talk a bit about that declaration. But before I go there, let me say something about what the results we've already got, not least thanks to your efforts, from our sort of global listening tour on UN75. You know, we are collecting data through multiple streams, and some of these data streams, we won't have the results back until July or August. So we're doing independent surveys with major survey companies. We won't have those results until July or August. But we're also reaching out to think tanks, to universities, and of course the main means is through our 1-minute survey. With regard to the 1-minute survey, as of today, we have over 200,000 responses from 192 member states. And what is very leaders in many countries are not pursuing so actively international cooperation. And we saw more a logic of rivalry, nationalism, friction, etc. The overwhelming demand of the people who responded to our survey is for more international cooperation. Over 90% have said that international cooperation in the current backdrop is very important. And the number who've come out in favor of multilateralism has actually increased against the backdrop of COVID. In terms of COVID, we added some COVID-specific questions, priorities post-COVID, to the survey. And perhaps not so surprising is the chief priority that people see in the immediate aftermath of COVID is better universal access to healthcare. I mean, against the backdrop of a pandemic, nobody will be surprised that that should be the chief priority. But perhaps what is more surprising is that of all the other options, and we put out 12 or 13 options of priorities in the immediate aftermath of COVID for people to choose from, the next most important option that people opted for is strengthen solidarity between people and nations. So again, this illustrates that against both before COVID and after COVID, people see international cooperation, global solidarity as more important than ever. When it comes to longer term objectives, the emphasis is very much on more environmental protection. That is the chief concern of everybody. And when you ask them about the longer term objectives, what they most want for the world in 25 years, healthcare is not the chief objective. The chief objective is better care for the environment. And after that, it's more respect for human rights and human dignity. And after that, it's less conflict. So we are getting a clear set of priorities. We'll get much more differentiated and sophisticated, granular, detailed data from the more elaborate surveys that are being done independently of us, and also from the feedback we get from universities. But it's also clear from what the discussions we're having, the dialogues we're having, and the work that we're already hearing from think tanks and universities, that people also want a more inclusive multilateralism. Multilateralism that better brings in the voices of civil society, better brings in the voices of cities, of local authorities, that better brings in the voices of youth and of the business community. There is a sense that if you look at where who had their hands on the levers of power 75 years ago, and where the hands are on the levers of power today, there's been a big change. But that's not adequately reflected in our institutions today. So people do want to see a more inclusive multilateralism, And one of the demands is a bigger voice for cities and local authorities who are at the forefront of many of the global challenges, whether it's dealing with the fallout of climate change or dealing with the fallout of global pandemics. Coming to the declaration, which is a political process which we've fed into, this is really led by member states, not so much by us. The draft is now being discussed between member states. It's a short draft, very forward-looking. It's 2 or 3 pages. And basically, it recognizes and acknowledges achievements of the UN in the first page and a half, but then it goes out to set what it sees as the chief challenges ahead. And it talks about the leaving no one behind, i.e. the importance of the 2030 agenda and inclusivity. It stresses climate change. It talks about the prevention of conflict. It talks about upholding international law and justice. It talks about gender equality. It talks about trying to reconstruct international trust, and it talks about digital cooperation. That's a major new element. And it talks about adequate financial support to the UN. And it also talks about broadening partnerships and better inclusion of youth. And then, of course, it also talks about learning lessons from the COVID crisis. So those are the main points in it. It's very aspirational. It's very forward-looking. It's not terribly concrete, frankly. And there the key thing is it also calls for a follow-up mechanism to be led by the Secretary General to come back with a more detailed report on how it could be implemented within the year. So the real work, if this is adopted, and it's still under negotiation, if it is adopted, the real work will then begin through the Secretary General in the follow-up mechanism. And we're glad that also digital will be part of that. We're glad that the idea of better integrating youth and strengthening UN partnerships, which of course is key to you, is also a part of that. So that's in brief where we stand, and we're deeply grateful for your cooperation. We do feel we're at a pivotal moment in history. You know, there are certain moments in history where you know the history as we know it changes chapters dramatically. You know, in Europe it was after the French Revolution, it was after the Russian Revolution, it was after the Second World War, and there's a broad feeling that we're at another major moment with the COVID pandemic, with the preceding crisis in multilateralism, with the threat of climate change, at another major shift in history. And how what international cooperation will look like after that, this new era we're about to enter into, whether it will be strengthened or weakened, is an open question. And we have to, we believe, work together, as we've been doing so far, to make sure that the world adopts a path of greater sanity and not a path of greater conflict and isolationism. So thank you again for this opportunity, and really warm wishes from New York.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. That was very interesting, very detailed description of the UN stance currently, which I imagine is very relevant for our audience, since most of our viewers are involved into NGO work in governmental affairs, international relations, and thank you so much. We did indeed a little part of efforts devoted to promotion of UN75 campaign, and I believe that we will find more opportunities to cooperate. And for us was really interesting to listen to your agenda, to understand how the member states process works, so that each of our members can address their best practices and solutions through their member states, through other stakeholder groups, and understand how this process works. And again, thank you very much for all your support, as this is already the third webinar with us together, and amazing thanks to your team. And as previously we discussed, digital governance and cities agenda with Her Excellency Maimouna Moghsharif, Executive Director of the Habitat. And maybe one of next events we can also discuss something important on regional or global level. All in all, I would like to thank you again for UN's attention to our work, and we strive to collect and spread the best practices and solutions which are already working. And today we are going to show how exactly they worked throughout the whole year after they were presented at the Petersburg International Economic Forum. So without any hesitation, let me introduce our speakers, and we also will listen to His Excellency Minister. So today with us we have Moscow, we have Singapore, and Amra from Accelerating Asia. We have Bushan from Kids of Kathmandu from Nepal. We have Balja from Mongolia and her organization Youth Inc. We have Gustavs and his youth platform All Opportunities from Latvia. We have Matthias from Argentina and his technological company Nanotica Agro. We have Raymond from South Africa and several of his organizations, including Inter-African Research Consultancy and South African BRICS Youth Association. So these will be some cases of the work which we are doing, and all the speakers will tell about our friends groups, Friends of Cities, Friends of Education, Friends of Science, Friends of SDGs, Friends of Technology, and Friends of Social Entrepreneurship. Without any hesitation, let me now ask our partner, His Excellency Minister Chiramin. With him, we have with the Department of External Economic and International Relations, our Friends of Cities group has agreed on the MOU in Russia's house in Davos. And we are very pleased that you are with us today, Your Excellency. We wanted to ask you how Moscow, from your perception, is doing right now in terms of the crisis, which solutions are required from the global level to be implemented in Russia, what are basically your forecasts for future of international cooperation, and any other interesting ideas and thoughts which you can share with us. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really happy to join this conference. For us, it's really very important to share our experience and our views, how to tackle this difficult issue linked with pandemic. And I would like to convey best regards and the warmest regards from the mayor of Moscow. We participate quite often in the video conferences like this, nearly every week, and we think that that is one of the best opportunities how to share our knowledge about pandemic. And from the very beginning, when we imposed quite strict limitations according to the recommendation of the World Health Organization on the activity in Moscow, on the social activity, on the cultural, industrial, closing industrial enterprises, museums, schools. We carefully examined the experience of the cities that were engaged in this pandemic a little bit earlier than Moscow. So we did have in front approximately 1 month to prepare for the most, let's say, severe situation in the city, and the city government mobilized all the possible resources not to allow the population to be in the crisis, and providing health facilities and reserves for everybody who could be infected. Just maybe a few figures for statistics. Moscow did have approximately 45-50% of all the infected people in Russian Federation, and that happened because from the very beginning, Moscow was used as a kind of a filter to the country, and all the flights coming with passengers from already infected countries first arrived to Moscow, and as soon as we detect that passengers are affected or infected, we immediately send them to the Moscow hospitals or Moscow clinics or reservations, special reservation, where we keep them if the disease was not really severe. That created quite a big number of people with whom Moscow healthcare system dealt with during this time. Within nearly 3 months, we up to date had approximately 210,000 people infected, and if you take the overall Russian number, that is 550,000 infected. We have quite a low death rate nowadays, 3.4 thousand death cases in the city, and it seems that mostly because we managed to prepare doctors and nurses and clinics to adopt a number of a lot of infection people, and clinics were equipped according to the best standards, world international standards. Thus, we think that our cooperation with the other cities at the very beginning, and we are very grateful, by the way, to Chinese doctors who send their specialists and virusologists, epidemiologists from China to Moscow at the very beginning. And they were in our hospitals, they provided lectures, they even shared their experience not only in the modern methodologies how to treat COVID, but also the Chinese ancient methodology, how they did it in China. And for us, it was very interesting to listen for all of that. We also discussed all the necessary measures that should be taken just to avoid the births of pandemic around the country. And we think that this cooperation and regular video conferences with different metropolises we did have within these 3 months, it helped us so much that Moscow avoided the worst scenario of COVID epidemic. Today, we are in the phase of decreasing a lot of cases. In Moscow, we have approximately 1,000 cases. Before, we did have up to 6,000. That's why we facilitate and withdraw some limits for small and medium-sized enterprises. From the 12th of April, we opened all construction sites. By the way, we never closed the Moscow subway. All public transport was functioning like it functions during the normal time. Nowadays, we have opened spaces for the restaurants. We opened museums, some other cultural facilities. And smoothly Moscow moves to withdrawal of all the limitations for its activity. Even we do have today approximately 1,000 every day registered. But as I mentioned, the number is decreasing. And just 10 days ago, we participated in the video conferences with the biggest megapolises of the world, with mayors, with governors. We did have 40 biggest cities, and everybody stressed that it's really very, very important to find some way for cooperation in the future in such critical situations, because no one megapolis was before the pandemic ready to accept such a big number of infection people. We didn't have enough reserves of the equipment. Even specialists were not trained professionally sometimes, and we organized special courses, for example. Nobody could even foresee that the impact on the economy will be so great, especially on small and medium-sized enterprises. That's why in Moscow, for example, we organized two headquarters. One medical headquarters that on the 24-hour basis monitored all the situation, and we created a huge database to control every person who contacted COVID infected people or who was affected. We did have very strict control on the streets about wearing masks, gloves, especially in transport. We even didn't allow people registered in the base to go to public transport, because the special card immediately detected by face control, and you could not enter, for example, the subway. So there were a lot of measures, different measures, and we think that all of them, medical measures in combination with economical measures, more or less created situation when there was no panic in the city. There was no panic in the hospitals, and everything was organized properly. We did have some very intensive work for emergency services, especially for medical emergency, because sometimes during the day they took 5,000-6,000 patients to the hospitals, and we even reconverted nearly 40 hospitals, even the private ones, into the COVID hospitals, and we did have great cooperation with all the doctors and nurses there, and all this collaboration of the society, both created quite a unique opportunity for the government to pass smoothly through this crisis without any turbulences. And nowadays we are implementing all the economic measures to revive business in the city. And we already adopted a lot of incentives, not only to SMEs, but also to big companies, adding them to federal measures of the support. Thus, we think even we will have the impact and the decrease of the regional GDP. It won't be so dramatic, and it didn't cause a lot of unemployment. So it is quite regulated situation. And we carefully examined all the statistics from all around the world, from Singapore, from Beijing, from Kuala Lumpur, from other cities, from Delhi, from our partners in Northern America, from New York. And every day, Moscow mayor did have a special report. What is the trend? How COVID situation is developing? What new measures are elaborated? What is the new cooperation? And coming back to the support, for example, of our Chinese colleagues, we are really very happy that at that time from China we could buy and import special equipment, very fast testing systems, very effective, that provided for us the opportunity to make massive massive testing and massive testing of the population. And nowadays, I think we are on the second place in the world for testing because we think that even we do not have a lot of let's say serious cases, and more than 45% are not with some symptoms. But testing the whole population of the city, 12 million population, that's very important to understand what is the real situation of this virus. What could be the impact of the second wave, or could it be the second wave? So how to allocate special resources, how many clinics should we keep be ready for to accept patients? Should we have special reserves? Because we created some special reserves, the exhibition areas in some sport facilities. They are empty now. We are happy that we didn't need them, and we have enough clinic facilities. But in any case, it showed to us that collecting all these databases, we could much better manage the city resources.
That's
And
very interesting.
especially we think that international cooperation in this field, exchanging doctors, some new methodologies for treatment, maybe new medical pharma substances, cooperating with World Health Organizations or directly, that is very, very important for the cities, because we find out that we are much more flexible than countries, because countries immediately closed borders. Aviation companies stopped their flights. No possibility to, let's say, to cooperate really. And we seemed that were metropolises that started at the beginning this activity, and it seems to me that that is very important, that United Nations also supports some initiatives how to deal with this pandemic situation. But as the previous colleague from the United Nations mentioned, it seems to me that cities will play much bigger role in the nearest future, tackling these strategic problems, ecology, climate changes, or such pandemic situation. And I'm really grateful that we have this opportunity to talk to the honorable audience, and thank you so much to Roscongress for organizing this interaction.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. It was very important indeed to have this conclusion of cities acting as more flexible players now on the global arena, and let's see how it goes further. Our previous event was devoted to the cities agenda, and if you missed it, kindly watch it on our YouTube. We have a very beautiful post-production version by the TV Bricks, our today's host. And without any hesitation, I would like to give the floor to Amra from Singapore, who is exactly our Friends of Cities lead. And she will tell us how they support and find best practices and solutions and startups in Singapore, and how this practice can be, let's say, enlarged for the global community. Amra, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Roman. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedules to join us today. And thank you to Friends for Leadership, Roscongress, and Rospromo team for putting this together. Also, thank you to His Excellency Undersecretary General, Mr. Hochschild, and His Excellency Minister Sherman for your time today. So, as Roman mentioned, my name is Amra Naidu, and I'm representing Friends of Cities. So I'm also the co-founder of Accelerating Asia and general partner at Accelerating Asia Ventures. So basically, we've got three main focus areas. So first, we have an accelerator program. You might be familiar with that. So we have an award-winning flagship accelerator, which is actually designed to fast-track growth over 100 days. And it's targeted at scaling the best pre-Series A startups in the region. So we focus on Southeast Asia, but we go out as far as Pakistan and Bangladesh, and then we go down to Australia and New Zealand as well. Second, we have Accelerating Asia Ventures. So this is an early stage venture capital fund, and it backs top performers from our program. And it's regulated here in Singapore by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. Finally, the third part of what we do is we have a consulting arm. So we work with international companies, governments, universities, and not-for-profits to support them on things like venture building, creating deal flow, acceleration programs, and other innovation activities. So we work with them to optimize how they engage with the startup ecosystem, the investment ecosystem, and other new innovation or technology to drive the results that they're looking for. So we've had a really busy year since last year at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. We actually touched base with over 2,000 startups for our accelerator program, with about 1,000 ending up applying for the program itself. We initially chose 20 to join the program and invest in, with an additional 10 that are currently going through selection right now for an upcoming program that will be happening in August. So we have about a success rate of 2% to qualify for our program. So it's an incredibly thin filter. Through our program, we actually work very closely with founders to strengthen their businesses and set them up for success. And I think our results over such a short period speak for themselves. So startups that have come through our program have seen their businesses grow on average 2.5 times, and have raised a combined 5 million just during the 3-month program. Close to 70% of our portfolio is now considered impact. So this means that they are directly tied to an SDG. So with growing businesses, we see growing social impact. We're also proud to say that 42% of our portfolio are female-founded companies, which is 4 times higher than the average investment fund globally. So I think when we talk about the SDGs and being part of the UN75 conversation and what the world will look like post-COVID, we speak a lot about technology and the solutions driven by technology, but not too much about who creates it and how we can support them. So how do we encourage more ground-up solutions and better connect these solutions to resources to scale their success? So practically ensuring good design, commercial viability, sustainability, and inclusivity. What is the role of ecosystems such as accelerators like ourselves, corporates, investors? Are we funding the right solutions? And what is the role of government in creating policies, lending credibility to new ideas, and kickstarting funding for solutions that are not necessarily commercially viable in the short term, but that take the long-term view? So ultimately, the job of a venture fund such as us is to look into the future and make a prediction about what the world is going to look like. So at Accelerating Asia, we believe that entrepreneurs are humanity's greatest catalyst for positive change. So you could say that we have a pretty optimistic view of what our world is going to look like in the future. And I really believe that we have the opportunity to bring a spotlight to some very underserved markets in the region, bring resources and opportunities to these founders, and through our investments, take an active part in creating a future that's going to create meaningful change for people. So that's what we've been up to over the past year.
Thank you.
I'll hand it off now. Thank you very much for your time and for the opportunity
Thank
to
you.
speak.
Thank you so much, Amra. Let's continue our global journey. And now I invite our dear friend from fellow BRICS country, South Africa, Raymond Matlala, to have the floor. And please let us know how your projects evolved throughout this year and what vision you have for this post-COVID world.
Thank you very much, Roman. Greetings, colleagues. It's nice to see you all and see familiar faces in this group. His Excellency, Under Secretary General the United Nations, Michela, and His Excellency Shemin from my second home away from home, Moscow. Greetings to all of you. You know, a year ago, I presented this project, which is looking at the development of young African researchers into education, into science, you know, women in science, and so forth and so on. And this project has now since grown. I mean, we've presented this project a year ago at St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. And as part of members of the Friends for Leadership in the umbrella body of Fronts of Science, we had grown this project quite significantly. And, you know, it started with just 10 individuals. And now those 10 individuals are, you know, incorporated and capacitated into doing research, in particular in the education space, in the technology space, in the business space, and so forth. We have now, you know, grown this project with one of the organizations that I work for, which is called JET Education Services, into research boot camps, where we are running our third research boot camp, which started just after the South African lockdown in March, where we had selected a number of about 150 young people from around the world to take part in the research bootcamp, looking at new methods and methodologies to work around COVID-19. And that has escalated to working in SADC as a region in the southern sphere of Africa. And we are also now working with 55 countries of Commonwealth member states, where we have over 200 young researchers taking part in various aspects of research. And in particular, the one that I'm responsible for, it is the one for global citizenship education. So we are finding ways on how to incorporate and survive, and what is the impact of COVID-19 on the stances of the existence of global citizenship education. You know, our goal as Friends for Sciences is that we need to increase connectivity. Increasing connectivity is the main sphere where we will allow young people to significantly participate in the cooperation in the multilateral and international space. Thank you very much, Roman. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Raymond. And I imagine that following what their excellencies were saying about how we are now moving with this drastic development of technologies, and how this crisis, the healthcare crisis, showed us the science is something very important. And I believe that more and more conditions should be created for scientists to continue doing joint researches and also increase international cooperation in the spheres of science. And hopefully, as we started some negotiations with UNESCO for the support of Friends of Science work and joint research activities, let's see how young people can contribute to this project. And also, I believe personally that one of the ways to boost scientific cooperation is raising of connectivity in our world, and this is also one of the key pillars of the digital roadmap for cooperation. So let's hope that more and more people, including young people in poor communities and all the communities, have access to devices, computers, and have internet connection, because without that, no education opportunity, no research can be going to that places. And now let us come back to our friends from Mongolia, Balja, who is a great specialist in the question what's next, but in terms of our skills. And I believe that all our audience knows that they now have 101 new ways of spending their curfew at home. So we will all learn something new. So Balja, please let us know about your work and on the topic, very important topic of future of work, and how do you see the situation evolving, and what skills maybe young people and all the citizens worldwide will require. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Roman. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Greetings from Mongolia. I'm Balja. I'm a founder of Meetup and a friend of FFL. It's my pleasure to take part in this Friends for Leadership online meetup with this special guest from UN75 General Mr. Fabrizio and Minister from Moscow government, Mr. Sergey, together with our fellow participants from the SPIEF. I feel like it's SPIEF time now, again. You know, Mongolia is a country of youth. 64% of the total population are under 35 years of age. And today, youth unemployment rates are very high in Mongolia, at 24%, which is 3 times higher than the national average. The skills mismatch is the major challenge in our labor market, as the young people have challenges in finding jobs they want, and the businesses are unable to find the talent for the jobs they have. So there's a big gap that exists between youth and employers, which contributes to uncertainty facing all. So we wanted to address this issue with a project initiative called Bridging the Gap Digital Skills Matching Internship Program. The goal is to reduce the mismatch between young job candidates and employers by increasing the employability possibilities of youth to acquire the needed skills and practical experiences in real working conditions at the employer's workplace. So it will enable both the youth and the employers to enter the labor market more prepared and assist them for the future of work. And within this 1 year after SPIEF, our project initiative was shared and promoted in various international arenas successfully. Initially, we shared that we considered for the forum at SPIEF, and our project was selected as one of the 2 projects promoted by the Friends for Leadership Network. And our Roman presented both the projects at the higher UN conference in New York last year. And I had the great honor to address the 108th centenary session of the International Labor Conference of ILO at the plenary on behalf of the Mongolian employers delegation in the UN Geneva, Switzerland, on this exact day 1 year ago. And that led me to attend the Global Youth Employment Forum in Abuja, Nigeria in August of last year, as our project was selected as one of the 17 initiatives to share among 200 plus countries, 200 plus delegates from different countries at the Share Fair. So very recently, we have contributed to a bigger research project of the Maastricht University of the Netherlands, commissioned by the DCP, the Dutch Employers Cooperation Program on bridging the skills gap. So the key message I understood by participating in all of these international conferences is that this skills mismatch and the competence gap is a common challenge, both locally and globally, especially in developing countries. And as we talk, the world of work is changing due to COVID-19 pandemic. The scale and the scope of this crisis is still extensive and complex, affecting people's lives and their livelihoods. What's our new normal is that today's skills will not match the jobs of tomorrow, which means lots of uncertainty and pressure. How can we prepare ourselves for the future in the post-COVID world? How can we help others who lose their jobs and are faced by these challenges? What should we advise youth and our children for the future of work? As a mother of 2 kids, I am challenged by these questions and uncertainties. Therefore, I decided to re-establish using the Young Learning Professional Association. We envision to build a more inclusive and sustainable network to bridge the gap between youth and employers by promoting healthy lifestyles, decent work, quality education, and global partnerships towards a better future. Moving forward, at Youthink and Friends of SDGs, we believe that SDGs should be a vision for a post-COVID world to help governments, businesses, NGOs to show a roadmap to recover from COVID-19 based on one holistic framework that brings these diverse aspects together as an integrated perspective from health to education to economic growth and to global partnerships. And we believe that our Bridging the Gap project, which works directly with SDG 3, 4, 8, 17, can be developed further as an intervention to reduce the skills mismatch, which then can be scalable to other emerging countries as we're all in this together. The journey already has started. As you think, we've started building the foundation of our new normal, and our brand new office and development center in Mongolia is launching very soon, maybe after 2 months. Let us invite you all to collaborate with us by sharing and bringing the best practices and global talent together so that we can build a more inclusive and sustainable network towards a better future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Belgium. And we are always inspired by your work. And definitely, I believe that one of our possible offline activities can and should be in one of your new office and new opportunities you create right now in Mongolia. Speaking about opportunities which were offline, now they are online. Let's refer to our friend from Latvia, Gustavs, who will, I believe, very briefly, since we have a couple of more speakers left, tell us about his program, Youth Opportunities, and maybe also focus on his efforts during the pandemic. As I remember from our campaign Friends COVID-19 Support that you have, with your friends, launched something new. Can you please explain what it was?
Obviously. Hi everyone. Very nice to see all of you. I'm Gustav from Latvia, and I'm the founder of youth opportunity platform Visas iespējas, which means all opportunities in Latvian. And I'm also a co-founder of initiative Paliec mājās, which means stay at home. So starting with all opportunities, that's the project that we went with last year to the SPIEF conference. And essentially we're building a platform which wants social inclusion of young people locally. Because local is the level at which you can influence people the most. So how do we do that? We showcase scholarships, exchange programs, voluntary work, and all these various activities that young people can join. And we approach local youth organizations which actually input information about their activities, which means that we are really locally relevant, and on a global content we also get it so that we're both locally and globally relevant, because only some of us are lucky enough to be in such platforms, in such international networks, and most of the people need to be achieved locally. So we're doing that through opportunities. And actually this year we have started expanding in a couple of new directions. So one of them is we also expanded in the job market. So we want to provide also job opportunities to young people. This year we made speed dating events, which were a real hit because it's a really interactive and sexy format, I must say. And we got 1,000 one-on-one meetings between companies and young people. So that was a great success. As well, now because of that, we're expanding into recruitment. And we want to allow essentially this globalization to work even better, because if a global company is searching for a young person, then after this COVID crisis, they won't care that much whether the person is located in New York, Riga, or South Africa. So that's essentially where we're going with recruitment and these local chapters all around the world. And third, to have these local chapters, we're building new websites and essentially new branches in North Macedonia and UK. So that's where we've moved in this year. But obviously, in the last 3 months, the situation has changed. So employers are not as willing to work with us due to the crisis. But the good part is that me with a couple of other people, we met in a hackathon and we developed a solution, Stay at Home, which is a hotline where people in need can actually call us and tell their need. And then the need is inputted in a mobile app, and volunteers can actually take those requests and fulfill them. And we actually have more than 1,000 volunteers now, and we have fulfilled more than 1,000 requests. And for a country as small as Latvia, and with as good kind of results of COVID and response, we have just slightly more than 1,000 confirmed cases. So actually, this amount of volunteerism is really high, and we also saw really good coverage from press. All national media were onto us. We got really good partnerships with corporations, and I think it's because we were able to find this solution with kindness of people, essentially by volunteering, and as well with a mobile app, which kind of brings technology into it and makes it even a bit more interesting. So that's what we've been up to in Latvia. So thank you, and I hope you're having a nice Friday.
Yeah, thank you so much. I believe that we should share these opportunities also on our pages and the app you were developing. We have 2 more speakers. Please, dear friends, kindly stick to the time limit of 2 minutes. And as food security during the COVID might have some negative drawbacks after the situation gets normal, and we hope it gets. So Matthias from Argentina develops nanotechnology in the sphere of agriculture. Matthias, can you tell us, as Friends of Technology Group, what's with your project now? Which prospects we have?
Hi, thank you Roman for the invitation, and thank you everyone. As for the people that doesn't know about what do we do in Nanotica, we are empowering farmers with nanotechnology to have more sustainable crop production. So we are focusing on reducing the use of our chemicals in the world. Last year, when we went to St. Petersburg, we just raised $300,000. So we use those funds and resources. So we get some amazing results. For example, we had half of doses in the use of commercial herbicides. We also nanotized more than 20 farmers here in Argentina, and those farmers represent more than 1 million hectares. Also, we already tested our technology in Brazil, that is one of the biggest market in the world for agrochemicals and for crop productions. For this year, we have some challenge after COVID. The fundraising is really hard, at least here in Latin America, but we are achieving this amazing challenge with increasing our team. We hired the ex-secretary of our industry in Argentina, and also we are testing our products and developing with companies like Bayer and Syngenta. So our next step for the next year or for the following months will be to raise $500,000 in this round that we already have opened, and we have some investor that's already entered during the COVID. Also, we are starting operation in Brazil, so the idea is to start testing our product with farmers and also to work with our chemicals and fertilizer company there. And also, we are focused on developing products with partners around the world, like scientific groups or other kind of company. For example, in Russia, we have been trying to reach Nano, and also we're working with the agrochemicals company from Russia. So this is our challenge for the future, and the idea is to keep growing in order to help farmers to reduce the use of our chemicals.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matthias. And last but not least, we have our Friends of Education and Bhushan from Kathmandu. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Roman. Hello, everyone. This is Bhushan from Nepal, representing an organization called Kids of Kathmandu. In 2015, we had this major earthquake, which ended up taking 10,000 lives and destroying 8,500 schools all around the country. So we decided to use that crisis as an opportunity to, take that as an opportunity to build a school, which we call now a 21st century school. And with the area that we work, we have always said that we want to reduce this gap between urban and rural area, where in the country like Nepal, there is a big gap we have. So till now, we have built 9 schools, all earthquake proof, and we are touching life of almost 4,000 students every day. We have, right now we have started building schools where we are using this technology called Ramrod, which is more eco-friendly, more sustainable, and trying to be more responsible to Mother Earth. We're also trying to create a synergy here. What we are doing is, other than building a school, we are giving this skill to the local people, which they can replicate in any part of the world and can make earning out of it. So that way, we are also creating synergy. But we are very clear that only building a school building does not make a school. So we also help all this public school with all the required support system, which includes computer lab, water purification, furniture, library, so on and so forth. So for most of us, we may think that this is the kind of thing that we have in a school, but in the area that we work, in the geographical location that we work, this is a dream school for them. So in other words, we can say that we are fulfilling a dream of for now 4,000 students and much more to go. Uh, Other than that, on a soft school skill of school, so we are also conducting this digital classroom project where we are trying to digitize our classroom. We are conducting a lot of teachers training, WASH program in school. So to sum up, we are trying to flourish this principle of dignity in all the community that we work. For this, we have been very lucky to have a lot of national and international partners working with us. And SPIEF last year was a major sort of network with several new partnerships that I'm working right now. So again, I'm really thankful for SPIEF that I was part of. So post-COVID, as every one of us are talking right now, a lot of things will change, but we are very sure that the importance of quality of education will be same, if not higher. So we are planning to design more program which will help school students to understand health-related issues, create environment where students can enjoy more freedom and creativity, and live life of dignity, which is lacking in most education system all around the world, especially in developing countries like Nepal. So that is our strategy moving forward, and I'm really thankful for this platform where I can, I was sharing this the project 1 year back, and now the progress that we have made in the whole year. So I really thank you for this opportunity. Thank you. Over to you.
Yes, our time is up. Thank you very much to all our speakers, to our amazing guests, to our honorable speakers. Stay in touch. Please, let's thank Roscongress, TV Bricks, Ruspromo, and all our partners from Friends for Leadership and the United Nations and Moscow government, of course, for these wonderful conversations. And we look forward to more interaction in the future. Thank you so much. Stay safe, and let's see each other online. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Right now we can disconnect.